Though they account for less than 0.2% of the world's ocean surface, coral reefs support more than 25% of all marine species, and their biodiversity is akin to that of tropical rainforests. But coral reefs are not only a natural wonder, they are also a vital resource. More than 250 million people living in tropical coastal communities rely on coral reefs for their food and livelihoods. Indeed, reef fish caught in coral reef fisheries account for around 10% of all fish consumed by humans. But coral reefs and the services that they provide are under threat. Multiple local and global stressors are causing increased coral mortality. These include increased instances of coral bleaching and coral disease, overexploitation, reduced resilience of reefs to disturbances such as tropical storms because of changes in their community structure, and now and into the future, coral reefs also face the negative impacts of global climate change, including ocean acidification and warming. My name is Dr. Alice Rogers, and I work at the University of Exeter in the UK, and I'm based here in beautiful Australia at the University of Queensland. I wrote this paper together with Peter Mumby, who's also at the University of Queensland, and Dr. Julia Blanchard, who's based at the University of Sheffield in the UK. And what we did was we kind of brought together Julia's expertise in fisheries and our understanding of coral reefs to answer a really interesting question, a really important question, which is really about how to quantify how much value you will lose on a coral reef as that reef habitat becomes degraded. And specifically what our paper was about was how much fisheries value, how much fisheries potential do you lose. From an ecological perspective, one of the most important attributes of coral reefs is their structural complexity. Structural complexity is a term that really refers to the architecture of the reef habitat, which is created by the accretion of limestone skeletons deposited by living corals and other calcifying organisms. The diversity of shapes, sizes and morphologies of corals create numerous cracks, crevices and holes on the coral reef substrate. These cracks and crevices provide nesting sites, settlement sites and flow refugia to reef organisms. But perhaps most importantly, they provide places to hide. On a healthy, complex coral reef, numerous fish and invertebrates of varying shapes and sizes and a huge diversity of species are able to find refuges from their multiple predators that would otherwise make a quick meal of them. But what happens when the health of the coral reef system declines? As corals die, their skeletons are eroded by physical and biological processes. And basically what we're beginning to see around the world, and particularly in the Caribbean where we focused our research, is a flattening of the reef structure. So you go from places that are architecturally complex like this, with lots of places for prey to hide, to systems that have really low complexity and very few places for prey to hide. So what we really set out to do with this paper was to capture some of the things we know from experiments about the importance of structural complexity in a food web model that would allow us to make predictions about what would happen if you lost that complexity. So essentially what we wanted to do was we wanted to link the structure of the system in terms of the habitat health and the number of cracks and crevices on the reef to the function in terms of the predator-prey interactions and how those differed between reefs with and without refugia, and then scale that up with a model to basically be able to make predictions at the community level about things like fish abundance and in particular about the turnover rates of big-bodied fish that would be important for coral reef fisheries, so therefore the productivity of coral reef fish in those two different kinds of habitats. Briefly, what we find is that a complex reef that has lots of refugia for a broad range of fish sizes supports an abundant fish population, and in particular it supports a really high abundance of fish in a small to medium body size range. The turnover rate of this system with regards to the rate at which energy is converted from primary productivity to big fish is really high. It has really high fisheries productivity. But when you lose complexity in hiding places, not only does the abundance of fish decline, but the size distribution of the system appears to change. That super high abundance of small to medium bodied fish is no longer apparent. But even more concerning is what happens to the turnover rate of the system. This productivity is now 3 times lower than it was in the complex habitat. So really what we've tried to do with this paper is to create a tool that can link the functioning of the coral reef ecosystem in terms of its health and its structural complexity to the services that it can provide in terms of fisheries productivity. And we think this is a really neat neat project, and it's got lots of potential for future applications for improved management and future sustainability of coral reef fisheries. But check out the paper, and if you have any questions, just drop us a line.